Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jennifer and this is going to be my February wrap-up. This month I read, I don't think I even counted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books this month, tying my total for January so far. So let's just get into the books I read. I read this month The Woodland Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5. It was a story about a travel journalist on the maiden voyage of a boutique cruise ship, and she thinks she witnessed a murder, and so the story is just about figuring out if a murder actually was committed. It's kind of a psychological thriller, I think. I did a review on that book, so I will leave it linked down below. In fact, I will leave links in the description down below for all of the reviews that I did this month. I think I've reviewed almost all the books so far, with the exception of 2 books, which I'll link once I do the reviews shortly. So yeah, that one was a 3.5 out of 5. I enjoyed that book. I enjoyed it much more than her first book, In a Dark, Dark Wood. Would recommend it if you're into those kind of things. The second book I read was The Lost City of the Monkey God by Douglas Preston. I gave that one as well a 3.5 out of 5. That book is all about a team, including Douglas Preston, that are looking to find the lost city of the Monkey God. And it talks about the backstory of Honduras, talks about the history of this missing city and the people who have tried to find it, and how they go about finding this lost city, whether they actually find the lost city. So it was actually a pretty interesting book. I kind of docked at marks more so because I thought I picked up a fiction book loosely based on events, but I was mistaken in that, and I felt I was a little misled by just how it was touted and advertised. So there was that. The next book I read was Wishful Drinking by Carrie Fisher. I gave that one 3.5 out of 5. That book was a short and quite funny read. It's all about the family and growing up of Carrie Fisher and her life surrounding bipolar disorder. That one was loosely based off her HBO series Wishful Drinking, and again I did a review for that book. The book I had on there was The Cellophane of Sarajevo by Stephen Galloway. It was a reread for me this month. I read that book probably close to 10 years ago, probably maybe close to 8 years ago. It's a book that's always stuck with me, so I kind of wanted to go back and reread this book because certain scenes always, just at random moments, seem to come back to me. And whenever I am asked what's my favorite book, I don't think that's my favorite book ever that I've read, but it was a book that I've always said is one that has left the strongest memories on me. So I thought it'd be nice to go back and reread it. That book is, of course, a 5 out of 5 for me. It's a beautiful book. Review is also linked down below. The next book I read was The Church of Marvels by Leslie Perry. And this one I had picked up based entirely by the cover and the name, the title. When I read the title, Church of Marvel, and saw the cover, I fell in love, and that was it. I didn't know really much anything about it other than it was setting place in around 1895, and it had characters from Coney Island. I really, when I went into it, didn't know much more about it. I gave this book a 5 out of 5. I believe this was a debut novel for Leslie Perry, and it was fabulous. The characters were amazing. The story was amazing. It was such a tight written novel that I didn't have anything really bad to say about it. The next book I had read was The Night Circus by Morgenstern. This I had picked up for Valentine's Day as sort of a love story. And I use quotation marks because I didn't find there much of a love story. You can see my further review link down below. This one I gave a 4 out of 5. I thought about changing that to a higher review, but ultimately, after thinking about it and having decided it in my head while I was having a shower one day, I thought, no, you know what? I'm going to leave it as it is. It just wasn't a 5 out of 5 for me. Next, I hate to admit this, but I didn't finish a book that I had originally intended to read, which was The Omnivore Dilemma. I had that on my TBR for this month, and after getting in about 2 chapters, I just couldn't pick it up anymore, so I tossed it to the side. Not literally, figuratively. I don't like to toss my books on purpose, but I'm gonna have to come back to that book. It just wasn't for me this month. So instead, last week I picked up Between Me and the World by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This book has been on my radar since last year, and it was available at the library on my e-reader when I was glancing through books, and I thought, you know what, I'd really like to get this book read. It's been said to be a book that everybody should read. It is a book about, it's not really so much a book about anything, it's not a story. What it is letters that a father wrote to his son about growing up Black in the United States. And it is just a glorious book. I give this one a 5 out of 5. I recommend everybody go read it, and I will be putting up a review on this book shortly. The next book I read, and this one ended up being my favorite, I'll say my favorite for the month, and it was also probably going in there as my favorite book I've ever read. There's only one other book that I think has impacted me the way this book has, and that is Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Tien. This is the Scotia Giller Prize winner for this year. It's also shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize of 2016. And this book is a family saga that takes place during Mao's Cultural Revolution. And I believe it starts in the 60s, going all the way up to 2016. And it follows the interconnecting lives of this one family, and well, it ends up being 2 families, but the primary character is Sparrow, his family and friend growing up during this revolution. I'm going to be putting up a review on this one, but I must say this is the most beautiful book and most heartbreaking book I have read probably in 20 years. Absolutely stunning. I don't have anything bad to say about the story. This is a 5 out of 5 for me, and I highly recommend everybody read it. This was also the pick for my book club, picked by one of the other ladies that's in my book club, so we'll be discussing this next Friday during that book club, and I'll find out what other people had to say about this one. I don't know if everyone loved it as much as I did, but it got really good reviews, and I'm absolutely in love with this book. And the last book that I read for the month was Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad, which is an Oprah book club pick from 2016. I had picked this one up for Black History Month. It's been on my shelf since last year, and I figured this was as good a time as any to read it. And it was actually a wonderful book. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5. It was a fabulous book, I must say. And this is about following a young girl named Cora as she travels the Underground Railroad when she escapes the plantation that she is a slave on, and her travels on the railroad and the different places she stops at along the way. This book tackles a lot during the escapes of slaves and the racism that was experienced back then. It's a hard book to read. There's some scenes in here that were very difficult to read, but I do recommend this book, and I quite enjoyed it. It is a fascinating story of the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad is actually in this book, just to note, a real railroad. It was a nice little twist on this story. So those are the books that I read for the month of February. I was surprised by quite a few that I enjoyed them as much as I did. I thought for sure the Underground Railroad was going to be my all-time favorite, but I was blown away by Do Not Say We Have Nothing. I didn't expect that book at all, and I know people say oh, I never cry when I read, or I don't know the last time I cried when I read, but that book, I haven't cried in a book in 20 years, and this one left me crying throughout several parts. So it's a highly recommended book. So yeah, tell me, let me know if you've read any good books in the month of February. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read, or tell me what you think about them. I would love to hear about some other people's opinions on the books. And that's it for this video. I will see you again on my next one, which will be my February book haul. Too many books. Bye!